Nastavljamo naše panele i sesije, razgovarat ćemo. Ovaj put su nam sagovornici dostupni samo digitalno, nadam se da će sve tehnički sve biti u redu. Razgovarat ćemo o investicionom okviru za Zapadni Balkan, o projektu Garancije Facility i također Europskom fondu za jugoistočnu Evropu, a naš prvi sagovornik je Roberto Esteles Colom iz investicionog fonda za Zapadni Balkan. To je inače zajednička finansijska inicijativa Evropske komisije, država članica Evropske unije i Norveške koje treba da pojača saradnju u oblasti investicija i u javnom i u privatnom sektoru. O ovome ćemo, kažem, za početak razgovarati sa Robertom Estelesom Colom. Hello, Roberto.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Roberto Esteles. I work in DGNIR in the Western Balkan Investment Framework, which is a regional platform covering the 6 Western Balkan economies. And I lead the team that works with the private sector development, so through blending and guarantees. And the objective of today's presentation, I can make my screen a bit bigger. The objective of today's presentation is to provide to companies and businesses with an overview of what are the instruments that the EU is providing through the WEF in support of the private sector. So I will quickly go through how the WEF works and how businesses can benefit from that support, to then have a quick overview of the private sector blending programs that are now available for MSMEs in the region, in this case in Serbia, to benefit from, and what is the role of the guarantees and how these will be supporting the competitiveness of different MSMEs. So very quickly, in a nutshell, the Western Balkan Investment Framework, or WEF, started its activities in 2009, and it's a joint initiative of the European Union with a number of bilateral donors, EU member states, but also some IFIs or DFIs, so international financial institutions, and we have the list there. So it's the European Investment Bank, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, the Council of Europe Development Bank, the German KfW, the World Bank, and French AFD. And as you can see, it has been very active since 2009, and when it comes to Serbia, more than 45 infrastructure projects for the total value of 7 billion euros have been signed and endorsed by the WEF so far. But before going into more details, maybe what is the WEF and what do we call blended facility? So the idea is that we pull together funding in the form of grants from donors, but also loans from international financial institutions to support a number of activities. So this is a bit how the WEF works and how this support reaches at the end MSMEs or projects. So basically you have a blended facility with, as mentioned, the Commission is present, you have the Western Balkan 6 beneficiaries present as well, and you have a number of international financial institutions that I have just mentioned. And we put together our funding in the form of grants, in the form of equity, in the form of public sector financing, to support investments that are there channeled through a lead international financial institution. And Karsten will then present how KfW is involved in a couple of funds. So in this case, we would say the leader financial institution would be KfW, that then will channel the funding from the blending platform through commercial and financial intermediaries in the ground. So for instance, commercial banks that then will provide financing for MSMEs. So it's a bit of a complex structure, but the point is that all the support that the EU is providing through WEF is then channeled either through governmental bodies or financial intermediaries as commercial banks in the ground. And in order to show, or the Commission is active on these elements because we are implementing policy first principles. So basically, we're putting at the disposition of the different countries grants and other financial instruments such as guarantees to support addressing a number of policy priorities. And these policy priorities are based on the economic and investment plan for the Western Balkans. It's also the green agenda for the Western Balkans and the innovation agenda for the Western Balkans. So basically, these are the 3 policy priorities that we're trying to implement through regional programs, which come to realize the WEF intervention areas. So basically, all our priorities are covered by these 6 intervention areas, and these intervention areas are areas where the WEF is actively investing together with the WEF members, so the IFIs and the governments. These areas are sustainable transport, clean energy, environment and climate, digital future, supporting the competitiveness of the private sector, and also supporting human capital. And we do that through three main instruments. We have what we call public sector blending, which is sovereign loans for infrastructure. We have private sector blending, and I will focus mostly in this second and third element, which provides access to finance for MSMEs through financial intermediaries. And then finally, we have the Western Balkan Guarantee Facility, which supports access to finance for MSMEs and private sector investments in infrastructure. So what are the opportunities for businesses when we talk about WEF? First, when we talk about the WEF public sector blending, as I have mentioned, these are sovereign loans that are provided to the governments for the construction of infrastructure in the areas of sustainable transport, clean energy, so energy efficiency and renewable energy, environment and climate, for example, waste and wastewater treatment plants, and also digital infrastructure. And there, how the private sector can benefit, or how businesses can benefit from this support, is through bidding in construction public tenders. So once the EU has provided financing to the government of Serbia, Serbia will launch public tenders for the construction of these big infrastructure projects. And the first way of benefiting from WEF support is by companies bidding to these public tender constructions. The other element through the WEF private sector blending and guarantees is to benefit, so MSMEs and businesses can benefit from loans or from equity, so from financing that is provided at better terms than the regular market conditions, provided that these investments take place in policy priority areas that we will check in a second. This funding is channeled through financial institutions, as mentioned, so it's channeled through commercial banks or investment funds or other type of fundings. So MSMEs, in order to benefit from this financing, need to apply for a loan or for an equity participation coming from one of these commercial banks or investment funds. But concretely, what are these policy priority areas for accessing finance for MSMEs? We are focused on 6 main areas. We're talking about supporting MSMEs investing in green technology and green investments in energy efficiency and self-consumption of renewable energy. So this is one of the areas. Another area is supporting investments in sustainable agriculture. We are also there to provide financing to invest in innovation and digital transition, so supporting businesses invest in the acquisition of digital technologies, supporting startups, supporting companies that want to scale up and want to go digital. And of course, we have support to trade activities. So in order to support companies in Serbia to trade with their neighboring countries, including with the EU, and also to support these MSMEs integrating in value chains, be it European or international value chains. And finally, we're also focusing on supporting financial inclusion of those further away from the labor market. And for that, we're talking about supporting access to finance through micro companies, recently created MSMEs, agri-businesses or youth in businesses projects. This will be for the private sector blending. When it comes to the Western Balkan Guarantee Facility, we also have a number of products, as we will see in the next slides. So focusing on the private sector blending, what I want to tell you is that we have a number of projects that are there to support access to finance for MSMEs in Belgrade. To be honest, we have provided more than 600 million in grants that are there to support up to 6 billion in investments in the competitiveness of the MSMEs in the Western Balkan region. And we do that through different instruments. So we have been providing guarantee facilities that are channeled through commercial banks and are there to de-risk their portfolio so that they can invest in underserved areas and provide loans at better conditions for the MSMEs. We are supporting access to equity financing for SMEs, and this we're doing through 3 equity funds in the Western Balkan countries. So it's the Enterprise Innovation Fund, ENIF, the Enterprise Expansion Fund, ENEF, and the Enterprise Expansion Fund second version, or 2, which is the NF2. Then we're also providing a number of lending possibilities with incentives, so with grant component, in support of MSMEs investing in energy efficiency, renewable energy projects, as well as digitalization. We're also supporting through structured funds, and Karsten will discuss more about this after my intervention, support to lending structures such as the European Fund for Southeast Europe or the Green for Growth Fund. which are there to support access to finance in a number of targeted areas. And finally, we're also providing technical assistance, so grant support, in order to improve the business environment. Because in order to have a conductive business environment supporting and helping MSMEs to develop in the countries, we do not need only access to finance products, but also supporting regulatory changes that make a better business environment for companies. So concretely, this is the list of programs that we currently have available and are already ongoing in Serbia to support access to finance. And this slide will be shared with you, so you'll have all this information at hand. So we have a couple of guarantees: the Guarantee for SME Resilience, which was signed recently and is now under implementation with the European Investment Fund, and is there to support affordable access to finance in the form of working capital and investments for MSMEs. We also have the EDIF Guarantee Facility for Youth, that in a similar way provides affordable financing in the form of loans to companies that are hiring young people or that are providing training opportunities for their staff. Then, as mentioned, we have equity products, and we have access to finance for equity through the Enterprise Expansion Fund 2, which provides equity contributions to innovative companies that want to develop innovation or that want to expand their presence in other countries. When it comes to access to finance in the form of loans and grants, we have the Regional Competitiveness Program with EBRD that provides not only loans and a portion of grant, but also advisory services to support investments done by MSMEs that increase their competitiveness. We have the Advice for Small Business Program also with the EBRD that is providing advisory services to micro, small and medium-sized enterprises that want to export abroad or want to acquire new technologies. We have, and I will not put too much emphasis now because Carsten will be presenting this afterwards, the European Fund for Southeast Europe and the Green for Growth Fund that is providing financing in the Western Balkan region. Then we have the Regional Energy Efficiency Program, the REAP, which is implemented by the EBRD and KfW. And this provides loans and grants as well as advisory services to MSMEs and households that want to do energy efficiency investments. So basically here we're providing advisory services to support the identification of technologies that are needed to do energy efficiency investments, and that are then paired with loans and a small portion of grants to make these investments more attractive. Similar to this product, we have the MSMEs Go Green program, also with the EBRD, that is there to provide access to finance and advisory services for those SMEs that want to do green sustainable investments in technologies in the agribusiness sector. And finally, we have the Green Finance for Inclusion with the Italian Cassa dei Depositi and Prestiti, so the CDP, which is there to provide financing in the form of loans and advisory services to support green and sustainable agriculture. So this is our current portfolio of available instruments that are deployed by commercial banks in Serbia, and to which you can request being analyzed by the commercial bank to benefit from financing. But we're also under the preparation of new products, and we have 4 new products that we expect will be in the market and available for SMEs in Serbia by the end of this year or very early next year. And this is a top-up of the Green for Growth Fund that Carsten will present afterwards, but also support to the sustainable access to finance for entrepreneurship. And here, what we aim at doing with the Italian CDP is to support access to finance or loans and advisory services for social enterprises. We have a program that is there to support the digitalization, so the investment in digital technologies by SMEs through the Go Digital in the Western Balkans with the EBRD, for which we'll have a combination of loans and grants plus advisory services. And finally, we have the Western Balkan Climate Program with the IFC, so the World Bank Group, which will be providing local currency lending in Serbia to support MSMEs doing investments in green technologies. As mentioned, this is what we expect to come in the close future, because every year we have a new call for proposals where these international financial institutions submit requests for us. And then this means that every year we have new programs that are there to address some of the needs of the MSMEs in the Western Balkans. This is a snapshot of what we're doing, but we're also working on increasing the visibility of this type of information so that the MSMEs know where to find information and funding opportunities. And for that, we are updating the WBIF website. The link is there, wbif.eu, where you will be, after the summer, be able to find information on what are the programs that the Commission is supporting in Serbia, but also in the other Western Balkan partners, as well as the funding opportunities that are there. And for that, we're working on displaying a list in each of the countries on the financial intermediaries that are active and are channeling EU-supported instruments. So basically, the idea is that if you click in Serbia, you will have the list of all the partners, so all the commercial banks, all the microfinance institutions, all the investment funds that are benefiting from EU-supported instruments and are channeling this support to the MSMEs. And this will provide you clear information on which door do you need to knock in order to benefit from this competitive financing. But also, of course, you have local offices of the different IFIs in Belgrade, and you have our EU delegation as well in the ground that can provide you with additional information on these programs should you have any questions. So this is what we have for the private sector blending regarding access to finance. But maybe, and most importantly, we have the new Western Balkan Guarantee Facility that will be deployed through 2023 and 2024. And there we have agreed on 21 new guarantee agreements for the Western Balkans that will provide almost 1 billion euros in guarantee coverage through different financial intermediaries. And for this, we expect 9 of these guarantees to be supporting access to finance for MSMEs. We will see the different areas that we aim at covering through those. But we will also have 12 guarantees that are there to crowd in, to bring in, to attract private investments in sustainable infrastructure in the areas of renewable energy and climate technologies, in the area of green investments in cities, so everything related to self-consumption of energy, energy efficiency, waste and water treatment plants, transport, sustainable transport, in green transformation, so we're talking about eco-industrial parks, we're talking about greening commerce, industry and logistics, we're talking about investments in nature and biodiversity, and we're talking about supporting digital transformation. When it comes to these sustainable infrastructure guarantees, there will be plenty of opportunities for companies in the Western Balkans, either to bid for public tenders for the construction of these big infrastructure projects, or when it comes mainly to renewable energy, to be project promoters in privately managed or in PPPs in the renewable energy sector. So this is the role that we see and the opportunities that we see for the SMEs and corporates in Serbia when it comes to the 12 guarantees that are for sustainable infrastructure. And I will now detail a little bit the information on the 9 guarantees to support access to finance. So we have 9 guarantees to support access to finance, as mentioned, and we expect that these guarantees to be available in the ground through a number of IFIs as of the end of this year or very early this year. And our partners for these guarantees will be the EBRD, the EIB, the EIF, so the European Investment Fund, the IFC, part of World Bank Group, and KfW, the German institution. And these guarantees will be there to ensure that we're providing benefit to MSMEs in the areas of green investments. So any investment that MSMEs want to do to support energy efficiency or acquisition of green technologies. We're talking about supporting sustainable agriculture and mainly through the Growth for All guarantee with EBRD or the Western Balkan Agricultural Risk Sharing Facility with the IFC. We're talking about supporting innovative companies that want to either go digital or acquire innovative technologies. And for that, we're talking about the EIB Group multi-thematic uncapped guarantee to support MSMEs in the Western Balkans. When we talk about trade and value chain or digitalization, we're also talking about the MSME access to green growth and inclusive finance EIB guarantee, to name one of them. And we were talking about supporting innovation, startups, and digital. We're also talking about the MSME guarantee program with the KfW. So as you see, we'll have a number of different guarantees that will be there supporting affordable access to finance for SMEs through commercial banks or investment funds. And one word that I wanted to bring to your attention here is that when we're talking about this type of support and this type of guarantees, what we're doing is that we're making sure that through these guarantees, commercial banks, microfinance institutions, investment funds are providing lending, so loans to business in the Western Balkans. So in this case, in Serbia, this will be channeled through commercial banks mainly, but there is a concept of additionality. What we mean through that is that the benefit of the fact that the EU is supporting this type of businesses is that a benefit needs to be provided to the micro, small, medium-sized enterprises or corporates. And this additionality or this benefit can be channeled through different means. It could be a reduction of collateral requirements. So basically, commercial banks that will be benefiting from these guarantees will require companies to provide less or no collateral. It will be asked to provide longer maturities. So for instance, instead of a 3-year loan for working capital, we'll be talking about 4, 5 to 6 years working capital loans. We'll be talking about potential lower interest rate on the loan that the company will be taking. We will be talking about making lending available at good terms in local currency, or facilitating access to finance or loans to first-time borrowers. This is the type of benefit that companies and businesses will have through these guarantees that I have mentioned. But this is to be added to the other products that we have been mentioning so far. So in order to conclude on this presentation, what I wanted to say is that we will be increasing the availability of information through the WF website, but also through our support with the local offices of the IFIs, through the EU delegations in the ground and the chambers of commerce. But of course, we will have plenty of instruments, either to support access to finance for these businesses or to support investments in the countries where businesses could benefit by bidding in public tenders so that they can benefit from the earnings of constructing these products. And this, in a nutshell, is the views of how WF can be attractive and benefit the business community in Serbia. So thank you very much for listening to the presentation.